Welcome to the Just Ride Snowboard channel. I'm Lars Horstman, and today we're going to look into a bit more binding adjustability, in particular high back rotation. Rotating your high backs can increase your performance if you actually ride with a technique that properly engages the high backs. So let's take a look what that is all about. The binding I'm using to show this is a bent metal transfer, and I asked my good friend Connor Anderson to lend me this pair for this episode. You should all check out Connor. He's an insanely gifted human, one of those talented guys that touches anything and it turns into gold. Connor is a Korua ambassador, rips on a snowboard and on a skateboard, and first and foremost he's an artist. Check out his Instagram, check out his art, well worth taking a look at. Thank you, Connor. The main purpose of your high backs is to bring pressure efficiently onto your heel edge. Now, depending on your binding angles, you're not really supposed to simply push backwards into the high back with your calf, but actually to work with your knees. And what I mean with that is, let's take a symmetrical duck stance, 15 minus 15. What you're supposed to do for good grip on your heel edge is to push both knees outwards. That brings pressure to the tips of your board, and that makes quite a noticeable difference. In a double positive stance, it's a little bit different, but you're still working with the knees towards the heel edge. So when you set yourself up like this, you're basically trying to push both knees towards the heel edge, so the back foot knee actually pushes inwards and the front foot knee pushes outwards to get the board on edge. And in order for this technique in either stance to work efficiently, we need to rotate our high backs for the leg, for the lower leg, to actually have some form of resistance here at the side to push into. So this binding is actually not mounted, and I already removed the ankle strap to make that a little easier. Let's just take a look what happens to the high back angle when I simply rotate through the different binding angles. So this binding is sitting here at about 3 degrees, and you can see nicely how the high back and my heel edge are really lining up. You can also use these 2 points here as reference. They line up with the edge pretty well. And at this stage, if I was just pushing straight back into my high back, that would be pretty optimal. As soon as I start rotating, and let's go to about 15 degrees, you will see how these two lines get further and further apart, and also how I'm losing more and more material here. Now at this stage, that's still pretty good, but it's clearly getting lesser and lesser. So as you go to 30 and then you want to really push your front knee outwards towards the edge, you will see that as much as there's still a little corner, if I was able to rotate my high back this way and actually have like a solid piece here, I'd be way better off. Okay, so I prepped this whole thing already. I'm going to remove the screws here, and basically you'll see then that you have these holes on the side, 3 right here and 3 right there, and that's the ones you're basically using to rotate the high back inside of the heel cup. Alright, so this high back is rotated, and now let's just compare that again to what we had here before. So at 30 degrees you can see how much more material I have right here in the corner to really push into with my lower leg. When I dial this back and I go to about 15 degrees, I think that's where the high back really aligns again with my edge. So in a rotated position, I actually get to line up my high back with my edge around the 15 or 18 degree mark with these bent metal bindings, and that's actually pretty awesome. I also want to look at this whole thing on the back foot in the scenario of a double positive binding setup. So we have to remove the straps in order to rotate the high back, because the entire screw really has to come out. Alright, then you can push with the screwdriver to remove that little nut here, and on the other side as well. I'm basically going to pretend that on the back foot I'm rocking, let's say 15 degrees positive, And you can see how highback and edge don't really line up. And when I rotate this, I'll get a much better result. Now I actually have material here that helps me to push into when I push my rear knee inwards towards the edge. So here's the example of a setup that more people are going to be riding out there. I put 21 degrees on the front foot, and you can see how highback and edge are actually lining up quite well. And then on the back foot, I put on -6. And in this case, I did not rotate the highback on the back foot. So this is an example that shows that you don't have to rotate both bindings. It's only at the more extreme angles where you really want to move a little bit of that highback material to the outside. So that's all about highback rotation. It's not a gimmick. It is actually a very useful feature, and it's even more useful on highbacks that don't have this pre-curve already. I recently looked at a Union Force binding just as one example. The highback is much less curved on that one, and it's kind of narrower than this as well. So on a highback like that, the rotation option is actually even more important. Now, why would Union prefer a highback shape like that? The less curve you have, the more lateral mobility the rider gets for like buttering or freestyle maneuvers, if that is desired. That's very much personal preference. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. But the more support you have in form of a curve, the more you're leaning into whether you want it or not. So Union are opting for a much flatter, less curved highback, and therefore the rotation is really, really important. The bent metal ones here, they are doing that pretty well to pre-curve already. So there's actually less rotation needed. And on my now bindings, where rotation is not an option, the highbacks are actually significantly more and more aggressively curved than these ones here. So I don't really need the rotation option on my bindings because they're already curved. So that's it. I hope you liked what you've seen. I hope that made sense to you. Like and subscribe, get the notifications for what's dropping next, and see you on the hill.